This is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. So social media links, along with Substack, email, will be provided. Audio platforms. I'm on Audible, Amazon Music, Spotify for podcasters, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Pandora, Google Podcasts, and I'm pushing and growing out to wherever you enjoy your podcast. I'm on that. Ratings are greatly important, so please give me a rating on all the platforms that I'm on. And also, questions, comments, concerns, email me. So this episode, and for the rest of the week, it will be the finish of talking about the American folk singers that I'm focused on. So, on this particular episode, I'm going to focus on the background of Suzanne Vega, Tracy Chapman. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to talk about Shel Silverstein and his body of work and his songs. And then I'm going to wrap everything up on Friday, talking about Suzanne Vega and Tracy Chapman's songs. All right, so let's dive in. Suzanne Vega was among the first major figures in the bumper crop of female singer-songwriters who rose to prominence during the late 80s and 90s. Her hushed, restrained folk, pop, and highly literal lyrics, inspired chiefly by Leonard Cohen as well as Lou Reed and Bob Dylan, laid the initial musical groundwork for later became the trademark of Lilith Fair, a tour on which she was a regular member. Moreover, her left-field hits singles, Luca and Tom's Diner, helped convince record companies that folk-style singers/songwriters were not a thing of the past, paving the way for breakthroughs by Tracy Chapman, Michelle Schock, Shawn Colvin, Edie Brickell, and the Indigo Girls, and a host of others. Vega's early commercial success helped open doors for a wealth of talent, as she scored a platinum album with 1987's Solitude Standing. And she would maintain a strong and dedicated cult following. Her association with and marriage to experimental producer Mitchell Froom during the 90s resulted in two very essential albums: 1992's 99.9 Fahrenheit and 1996 9 Objects of Desire. And personally, that song 99.9 Fahrenheit is really something that encapsulates the embodiment and the I think the importance of music from the 90s, that all these different artists were at that time, pop, rock, all you just experimenting with sound and visual composures, and it was acceptable and people liked it, and it wasn't just a restrained thing. And I think that's a really wonderful testament to that time period. All right, so following their painful divorce, Vega returned in 2001 with her first album in 5 years, Song in Red and Gray, which was greeted with her strongest reviews in a decade. She explored jazzy arrangements on the 2007 Beauty and Crime and wrote a musical one-woman show that was documented documented on the 2016 album Lover Beloved, Songs from an Evening with Carson McCullers. So, as a child, shy and quiet, Vega nevertheless learned to take care of herself growing up in the tough neighborhoods of Spanish Harlem. Her parents often sang folk songs around the house, and when she began playing guitar at the age of 11, she found herself attracted to the poetry of singer-songwriter music Dylan Cohen and found a refuge from New York's chaos and traditional folk Woody Guthrie, Peter Seeger, Judy Collins, and Joan Baez. At age 14, she made her first attempts at writing songs. However, when she attended the High School for the Performing Arts as a teenager, it was to study dance, not music. She subsequently enrolled at Barnard College as a literature major. And during this time, she began playing at coffee houses and folk festivals on the West Side and near Columbia University. She soon moved up to the Lower East Side Greenwich Village folk clubs and was a part and prominent in the folk clubs. That is that, more depth into that, a little bit more, including the famed Folk City Club where Bob Dylan started out. In 1979, Vega attended Lou Reed concert, and the effect was a revolution for her. Well, more of a revelation, that is, not revolution. Here was an artist chronicling the harsh urban world Vega knew. And it's really interesting because Lou Vega was a part of the Velvet Underground, and it's I can see how he continued that out and started to encompass this thing after the 60s and into the 70s and 80s and all of these things, experimenting with the concepts of folk, but how he, as Susan Vega is stated and as it is addressed in this particular source, and of course the source will be provided along with all the others on Substack on Friday, that he was not only singing, he was as if he was a journalist per se, getting down into the grit of talking about social issues and giving social commentary to where it was from a point of view that was a harsh reality of what people can face in humanity from time to time. All right, so with this concert, Vega knew with the detail and literacy of folk, Vega, a new voice and sense of possibility, her original material and her writing grew rapidly. That inspired her. Vega graduated from college in 1982 and held down several low-level day jobs while quickly becoming the Greenwich Village folk scene brightest hope. Recording companies were reluctant to take a chance on a singer-songwriter. However, since they saw a little chance of any commercial returns, they stepped in. After 3 years of rejection, Vega and her managers, Ron Fernstein and Steve Abo, finally convinced A&M, which had turned her down twice, to give her a shot. And she signed her contract in 1983. Former Patti Smith group guitarist Lenny Kaye was brought in to produce the debut with ABBA and leaned in with a smoother, more contemporary flavor. Titled simply Susan Vega, it was released in 1985 to much critical applause, thanks in part to the single Marlene on the Wall. And this was Marlene on the Wall. This was in reference to Marlene Dietrich, I believe, the actress. The album was a genuine hit in Britain, where it eventually went platinum, while it didn't duplicate that success in America. The album sales of 200,000 strong still came as a shock to A&M and Vega. For the 1987 follow-up, Vega overcame writer's block to craft an eclectic batch of new material, and drew upon a backlog of songs that hadn't fit the debut. Again produced by Kaye and Abdo, Solitude Standing was Vega's finest achievement. The richness and variety of his compositions were complemented by the lusher full band arrangements and more accessible, less folky production. The album's lead single, Luca, was a haunting first-person account of child abuse, whose fictional lyrics struck a chord with American radio listeners. As a result, the album was an instant hit on both sides of the Atlantic. It debuted at number 2 in the UK and went gold within 3 months in the US, peaking at number 11 and eventually going platinum. Luca hit number 3 on the American pop charts. This was unheard of for a singer-songwriter in the 80s prior to Vega, and was nominated for 3 Grammys. As record companies rushed to fill the market niche they hadn't known existed, and uncovering some major talent in the process. Vega spent most of a year on the road touring in support of the record. When the time came to record her third album in 1989, Vega decided to co-produce it herself and with her, at the time, keyboardist boyfriend, Anton Sanko, longtime bassist Michael Viscalega, I believe, sorry for the pronunciation, and also had input. Vega began to experiment with her lyrics, pushing beyond the narrative story songs that dominated her first 2 records, and had minimalist composer Philip Glass contribute a string arrangement. The results, Days of Open Hand, which was released in 1990, but it didn't produce another hit single and was somehow lost in the shuffle of the new female singer-songwriters that it did spell, respectively. Reviews were somewhat mixed. Even though the album didn't recapture Vega's 1987 popularity, she was still indirectly involved in the 1990s. Most bizarre hits singles, one of the most bizarre hit singles. 2 British dance producers working under the alias DNA took the Solitude Standing track, Tom Steiner, Capella, Solitude Standing track, Tom Steiner, and set it to an electronic beat, releasing the results as bootleg singles called Oh Susanna. When A&M discovered the piracy, Vega decided to allow the single's official release under the original title, and it became a substantial hit in the U.S., the UK, and everywhere else. The following year, Vega gathered a number of other unsolicited versions of the song and compiled them as Tom's album, which is Tom's Diner was one of the songs. And I think it's very interesting how that whole thing were encouraging the pirating or the free hand stealing per se, but going against the grain and letting people do what they will with your music and putting your own unique take on an artist's song. And I think it's interesting how she paved the way for particular artists to do that too, where as going against the grain of the record companies and doing a unique sound and letting other artists experiment with your music and being okay with that. That's very interesting. By the success of Tom's Diner, Vega began looking for ways to open up her musical approach. She got together with the producer Mitchell Froom, best known for his work on the 1990s album by Elvis Costello, Richard Thompson, and Crowded House. Froom applied his trademark approach, the arrangements, clanging, perception, the dissonant, to Vega's 1992 album, while 99.9 Fahrenheit didn't revenant her as a dance artist, as some expected. So Songs in Red and Gray was released in the fall of 2001 and marked a return to the more direct sound of Suzanne Vega and Solitude Standing. It also garnered her the best reviews since those records. Retrospective, The Best of Suzanne Vega arrived in 2003, followed by Live at the Montague in 2004. This was a DVD/CD in 2006, and the all-new Beauty and Crime in 2007. Well, I'm sorry, the Live at Montague is completely separate from the DVD, which was the Beauty and Crime. I'm sorry, it was a DVD/CD. My correction. All right, so in 2010, Vega released Close Up Volume 1 and Close Up Volume 2. The first half of a proposed 4-volume collection, all featuring stripped down, unadorned arrangements that highlight the lyrics and melodies, and follow the first 2 installments of the series of the close-ups of Volume 3 in 2011. The final release in this sequence, Close Up Volume 4, Songs of Family, appeared a year later in 2012 and included 2 previously unheard tracks, The Silver Lady and Brother Mine, which had been written by Suzanne Vega over 30 years earlier. In 2013, she demoed new material with the help of Gray Leonard, her live musical director. This resulted in the Tales from the Realm of the Queens of Pentacles, which was released in February of 2014. In 2011, Vega staged a one-woman theater piece in which she began a song cycle about the life and work of novelist Carlson McCullers, written in collaboration with Duncan Shea in 2016. As the song was being revived in Los Angeles, Vega released an album of its songs, Lover Beloved, Songs from an Evening with Carson McCullers. The album was released through Vega's own label, the Amanesis, I believe the pronunciation of that. Forgive me for that. Amanesis Productions. In early 2019, she performed a residency at New York Cafe Carlisle, singing a mix of originals and covers informed by life in New York City. An album from the Cafe Carlisle arrangements, an evening of the New York songs and stories, was slated for release in 2020. Okay, so here we go on to Tracy Chapman, an American singer-songwriter who quickly rose to fame in the late 80s, was a result of the phenomenal overnight success of her debut album, which sold, and I will go into depth about this on Friday along with Susan Vega, which sold some 1 million copies within 2 weeks of its release in '88, partly as a result of the broad appeal of the lead single Fast Car, a poetically direct, profoundly empathetic meditation on disappointment, discernment, desire, and survival. Chapman is known for her socially conscious lyrics and emotive, deep alto voice. She is sometimes compared to another acoustic guitar wielding black performer, folk artist performer, that is, Orera, which I did a previous podcast on. And if you're interested, you should go on and check that one out. Who came to prominence in the 60s, with who, like Chapman, drew inspiration from black spiritual tradition. All right, so Tracy Chapman grew up with a deep awareness of social conditions of poor black women, which she later expressed in her music. Chapman's mother, who played guitar, and sister exposed her to a variety of music, ranging from Neil Diamond, Cher, to the Bee Gees, to the Four Tops and Gladys Knight and the Pips. Chapman began playing the ukulele at age 3. Later, she learned to play the organ and the clarinet. There are a variety of accounts regarding when she began playing her signature instrument, the acoustic guitar. At an early age, she began writing songs, and by the age of 14, she had composed her first social commentary song, Cleveland 78. As a youth, she also wrote poetry and short stories, frequently visited museums and attended concerts and the opera. Chapman was able to attend the Wooster School, a private prep school in Danbury, Connecticut. At Wooster, she was active in sports, but took an increased interest in the guitar and music. There she first heard the contemporary folk rock music of such singer-songwriters as Joni Mitchell, Neil Young, Bob Dylan, and Jackson Browne, artists who would influence her own singing and songwriting. Upon graduation from Wooster School, Chapman accepted the scholarship to attend Tufts University, where she subsequently abandoned her lifelong dream of becoming a veterinarian and switched her major to anthropology with a concentration in Western African studies. During her college years, she continued to write and perform songs and began playing the local folk club circuit in Cambridge, Massachusetts. All right, so much impressed, Copeland offered Chapman a contract and helped her get a record deal with the Elektra Records, for which she recorded her debut album, Tracy Chapman of '88. The album's first single, Fast Cars, quickly climbed the pop single charts, peaking at number 6 on Billboard Hot 100. Two other songs on the album charted on the Hot 100: Baby Can I Hold You, which reached number 48, and the Rambling Rousel, Talking About a Revolution. Poor Girl Are Gonna Rise Up and Take What's Theirs, which rose to number 75. Meanwhile, the album became a massive hit, topping the Billboard 200 chart and going on to sell more than 20 million copies worldwide. It also earned Chapman 6 Grammy nominations, including Album of the Year and 3 Grammy Awards: Best Female Pop Vocal Performance for Fast Car, Best New Artist, and Best Contemporary Folk Album. This was indicative of her mediocrity rise on June 11th. June 11th of '88, less than 2 months after the release of the album. Chapman found herself alone with a guitar and a microphone in front of an audience of 70,000. This was in London. The Wembley Stadium in London as a feature performance of the tribute concert honoring Nelson Mandela's 70th birthday. In '89, she released Crossroads, another heartfelt album reflecting of her social and political outlook. Its title song landed at number 90 on the Billboard Hot 100, and the album registered at number 9 on the Billboard 200. Chapman began touring more intensely and participating in the Amnesty International Human Rights Tour, Matters of the Heart, in 1992. It did not fare as well as Chapman's previous albums, however, climbing to only 53 on the Billboard 200. However, New Beginning of 1995, featuring the hit single Give Me One Reason, it hit number 3 on the Hot 100 and winner of the Grammy Award of Best Rock Song. Chapman once again returned to the tops of the charts as the album crested at number 4 on Billboard 200. New Beginning also received a Grammy nomination. It was Best nominated for Record of the Year for Best Female Rock Vocal Performance. It was followed by Telling Stories of 2000, number 33 on Billboard 200, Let It Rain in 2002, 25, it hit number 25. Where You Live in 2005, it hit number 49, and Our Bright Future of 2008 hit number 57. The last being her most recent album of new material to date is 2015, her release on the Greatest Hits album. Now, let's get into this to wrap everything up. Nicki Minaj's copyright infringement and Luke Combs' version of Fast Car. As the 21st century progressed, Chapman, who had made San Francisco her home, assumed an increasingly low profile. But she returned to the limelight as a result of 2 recording artists' responses to her work. In 2018, Chapman filed a copyright infringement lawsuit against Nicki Minaj for having sampled without authorization Baby Can I Hold You in Minaj's song Sorry. Chapman had repeatedly denied Minaj's request for permission to borrow from her song. In 2021, Chapman accepted a $450,000 settlement offer. In 2023, country music star Luke Combs took his surprisingly faithful cover version of Fast Cars to number 1 on the Billboard Country Airplay chart, marking the first time that a song solely written by a black woman had topped that chart. The success of Combs' version highlighted the universal aspects of the emotion and appeal of Fast Car at the same time. A debate arose as to whether it was appropriate to use this, which is unfortunate because, and here we go with the whole politics of race identity and identity of sexuality with the black and LGBTQ and all of these things, saying that country music, in essence, is discriminative towards these particular people, which is not true, which is getting down to the essence of everything. Darius Rucker, he was a very successful, and it's countless and it's others before him, and to a lesser extent. Darius Rucker, he was a part of the Hootie and the Blowfish, which big fan when I was a kid, and still a big fan. They were made. He was a part, the front vocal artist of part of a major pop musical group, and he decided to go into country music. And so I see it like this. Okay, so if you go in life saying that my whole identity is just my skin color, or my whole identity is just my sexuality, I'm gay, I'm this, what have you, you miss the point, and you miss the ideas and the importance of what it means to be human, and that we're all in this together, and our uniqueness is what makes us different and what makes us understand each other a whole lot better. And it would be a very boring existence if everybody was the same. But keep in mind you also that a lot of things can be true at the same time. Of course, yes, there are people that have racist connotations or bigotry, and they just so happen to be part of country music, and I think but that's not always the case. And I think it's very important to understand that. And I think it is even more important to understand that you also, on the flip side of this, of the people who are preaching and saying all these things, bigotry and everything else, when most of the times, a lot of these people are the ones that are the bigotry, because they're not seeing past their own, what's the best way to say, their own biases. They're not trying to see things for the objective truth. All right, so this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. I sprinkled a little thoughts here and there in this particular episode. Give me comments, concerns about how you think about that, because I just wanted to run these things down and give you the background and go into a lot of depth about these two artists and how I enjoy the music and how I think they put these type of songs on the map in a different way, and how inspirational they are on Friday. All right, so tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. And as Vitamin C said from that song, Smile, put a smile on your face and make the world, a better place. Let that sink in. Bye-bye now.